Now, when doing our family of brand, I mentioned to you a moment ago that this one goes through the charcoal twice, Gentleman Jack. And this is, by the way, this is just a new package. The product inside it is not any different to what it's been since 1988, but it just a year ago about this time we came out with a new bottle, and that's the Gentleman Jack. Now, I always like to taste the Gentleman Jack first, then the Black Label, then the single barrel. And at this point, I will make sure that I tell you that I don't like to say that one's any better than the other one. It just gives them something for our friends and customers to select from. So just go ahead and lay the little tops off. And the Gentleman Jack, of course, you see there is on your left. So pick up the Gentleman Jack glass and smell of it just like we were doing a while ago, but don't put it in your mouth yet. Think about your toasted oat caramel vanilla. Very light in your Gentleman Jack. Sit that one back down and pick up the one in the middle, of course, which is the Black Label. You should be able to pick up a little more of your toasted oat caramel vanilla. It only goes through the charcoal one time. Now move all the way over to the single barrel. Single barrel is matured a little bit longer up at the top portion of the warehouse, and when we bottle it's never mixed or mingled with product from another barrel, and that's why we say single barrel, one barrel, a different flavor.
And each one's going to, for the single barrel, each one's going to have a slightly different...
Different from barrel to barrel, just like a moment ago, the single barrel selection we were doing to those people, they picked out the one that had a lot of toasted oak, caramel in it, and the one that had vanilla. I kind of stay away from, I mean, that's not my first pick, the vanilla, but I want to make sure that if someone's selecting a barrel that they pick what they want. They may like vanilla. We have people that even come in here and say, I want all vanilla barrels to select from. So pick up the single barrel with your right hand. Pick it up with your right hand, smell of it. Should be able to pick up much more.
It has a...
Now hold on to it, don't sit it down. Pick up your Gentleman Jack with your left hand. Now, if you'll look over here at this is my left hand. Can you see the difference in the color?
Yes.
This is the Gentleman Jack, so you can see the difference.
It's a little lighter.
Sometimes when you're looking out, you can see it a little easier than you could.
It is easier to see it in yours.
Yeah. So that's the Gentleman Jack. Again, it's going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit mellower in flavor as well. So take the Gentleman Jack glass, one in your left hand, and put just a drop of it under your tongue. I tell people if they get too frown on their face, they've had too much in their mouth when I'm doing this. Now do the single barrel the same way. Tell the difference? So here's the Gentleman Jack. Here's the single barrel. More of your barrel, toasted oak, caramel vanilla. Gentleman Jack, double charcoal. Now, the Black Label, the one we sell so much of, is in between those two. So if you'd like, just go ahead and taste the Black Label as well. As again I mentioned to you a moment ago, of the 10 million cases that we sell, 96% of it would be the Black Label. I didn't mention this to you a moment ago, I don't think, that 46% of everything we sell goes outside the United States. The UK is our largest market, then Germany, then we have Canada, Mexico, South Africa, Australia, Japan are all in the top 10. I came to work here with Jack Daniel in 1968 full time. I worked here during my high school and college days, and when Frank Bobo was the master distiller, they asked me would I like to come to work here. So in 1968, I came to work full time and worked with him 20 years, and when he retired in '88, I was made the master distiller at that particular time. I lived 2 miles up the road, thought I'd be a veterinarian in life, but turned out different.
So you purposely came to Jack Daniel's to be an apprentice, so to speak, to be a master distiller.
Well,
what would that role be
I guess,
called?
Julie, when I first started here, it was a job. And I didn't know whether I would even stay here or not, or stay in the same department, but 2 or 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, next thing you know, it's 10 years and 15 years, all in one area. And Frank had a misfortune of getting a couple of steam burns around steam, and it wasn't major, but he was off a few days, and I fell in and tried to make sure that everything was running correctly while he was off. And at that time it kind of dawned on me, I said, this might be something I'd like to do and have his job. So 1988, then it fell my spot. But again, probably when I first came here, I didn't think about the master distiller. But one thing about it, my job has changed considerably in the last 5 or 6 years, being here almost 40 years, being from Lynchburg, being around where the product is made for so many years. The company has asked me to kind of be a little spokesperson. So with that said, I do have the opportunity to travel around the world and every state in the union and about 40 different countries talking about Jack Daniel's.
How many master distillers has Jack Daniel's had?
Well, I'm the 6th one, and Jack being the first one. And he was born here in Lynchburg, and actually Jack, my mother and father are buried just a few feet from where Jack is buried. But he grew up here and buried here, and became owner of the company at a very, very early age, and he was the distiller at that time. And the other distillers that have been here, been from Lynchburg, grew up here and worked around the process. There's not any degrees out there for a distiller, but we're into chemistry and biology. Matter of fact, I'm the first one that had a degree, but the next one to come along. And I like to look at it like this. 100 and something years ago, where was Jack Daniel made? Almost out in the woods or a barn here. It was not illegal. It was before Prohibition. And that's the way things were made. They didn't have a gas chromatograph or the ways of measuring specific gravity of alcohol. It was all an art. But today we do have a nice quality control lab that we can run a lot of tests in. So it's more of an art and a science today than what it was, say, 100 and something years ago.
At what point did the development of Tennessee whiskey fit into the history?
Well, we have records that indicate in 1890 there was like 14 little stills in this little community around Lynchburg, and it was there because of the water. And Jack Daniel's still at that particular time was not the largest still by any means. So Prohibition set in this country and in Tennessee even earlier than it did U.S.-wide. So 1913, Tennessee went into Prohibition and did not come out until 1938. Now, 38 started back up, and Jack Daniel had already passed away due to that accident, and his nephew, Lem Motlow, was now the owner of the company, getting it going back. And we had the charcoal mellowing process here at Lynchburg, even again when it shut down for Prohibition. And after Prohibition, they were going to put Jack Daniel name in with the bourbon product. But with the charcoal mellowing process, the Motlow family went to the government and said, look, we have a little different process here, meaning the charcoal mellowing, and we would like to be called something other than a bourbon. So with that, the government granted them the right and the privilege to be called a Tennessee sour mash whiskey, strictly due to the charcoal mellowing process.
And who first came up with the charcoal mellowing process?
We really don't know that. Well, I can tell you that when Jack Daniel became owner of the still, it was given to him by Dan Call, a Lutheran minister, at a very young age. Well, Jack, soon after, came up to here at this location where the cave is, where we get our water from, and he bought the cave and the property, and there was a little still there, and they were using the charcoal process. And at that time, the area that we're in now was called Lincoln County, and they referred to this mellowing process as the Lincoln County process. So we just continued on with it from that point on. The charcoal removes some of the undesirable grainy flavors and aromas from it, and it makes it a little more mellowing product when it goes into the barrel. Now, it's a very expensive step for us because we have to buy the sugar maple tree, process it into a charcoal. We have a 1% loss of product in that area, and we're all time replacing mellowing that. So it's a never ongoing cost for the making of Jack Daniel.
Now, each has a distinct flavor profile. What are the key descriptive words that you would describe them differently?
Well, the terms that I like to think about is your toasted oak, caramel, vanilla flavors and aromas, and those come from the barrel. And I like to say that the Gentleman Jack, since it goes through the charcoal twice, that it's going to be a little bit lighter, not carrying hardly as much of that as the other two, and of course single barrel matured a little bit longer, so it's going to be carrying a little more of your toasted oak, caramel, vanilla. And let me say this: you heard me mention a moment ago that we let this one mature a little bit longer. We are very conscious of not going with too much time in the barrel. If we were to leave it in there, it would be as black as my shirt, sour, bitter. It would not be a desirable product to drink at all. So we cannot think about age like they do in some other countries. Why? We use a barrel. We only use that barrel one time. And if we were to leave it in that new barrel, it would pick up so much of that woody flavor and aroma, it would not be a desirable product. Yes, Scotch and Irish people can leave it in there because they take our barrels, or bourbon barrels, and use them over and over. Climate, temperature over there is different, so you can't compare. It's just like comparing apples and oranges or something to those people. Even here, when we put X number of barrels aside for the single barrel, and we do this when it goes into the barrel, that we only going to use about 50% of the barrel because it could be too dark in color, too light in color, or the characteristics that white oak wood did not let it mature out to be what we were looking for. So what would we do with all the whiskey that we don't use? We intermingle it into the black label, where you intermingle hundreds and hundreds of barrels together, and it fits right in, builds in consistency. But when we're bottling it one barrel at a time, we want it pretty close to our single barrel profile.
Do you have a group of people who make that decision? That it,
Six of us. 6 of us.
When the Gentleman Jack, is that handled differently, or is it just handled differently at the end when it goes into the
Different at the end. Our grain formula for the entire family is exactly the same. We can't make a batch because of our charcoal milling process, because everything we make every day goes through the charcoal, so everything mingled together. And you charcoal, some of the charcoal milling vats stay in there from up to 6 months. We're changing out one, so we'd have to make a batch of over 6 months of age, and I mean that can be millions of gallons. So we can't make a small batch. So we get into it after it's in the age and in the barrel, and that's the way we can do something different by doing it on a barrel basis.
Thank you very much for taking the time to I guess, drink us through a flavor profile of your various products. They're all very, very tasty.
You know, it's very pleasing to me to have the opportunity to sit down with people like yourself and show our product off. And you know, we're the largest whiskey in the world, and for you to come here to Lynchburg and sit down with me, it's very gratifying. And people will say, Jimmy, what do you think is the most outstanding thing of your job? I said, well, for me to live here in Lynchburg, to sit here and help make a product that's enjoyed with people around the world by millions of people, I get a lot of pleasure out of that.
And I'm curious, do you have a favorite?
Well, if you were to come to my house, you being a lady, I would offer you the Gentleman Jack first.
You know, I have to admit, I like that one best, so that would be a good call.
I might offer him the single barrel first, but you know, after everything disappeared, and on my daily basis, I'd probably go back to the Jack Daniel Black Label. But these are really nice products, you know, special products. But the old number 7 is just a hard product to beat.